Hey, it's another day of dev videos here. Before we get started, I've been playing Ark Survival the last 3 days. Like the game, but I feel like I'm playing Dark Souls. Getting eaten literally every few minutes. And this morning when we got up and everybody got onto the server, we lost our whole base to a single Alpha Raptor. He got us to the base, killed us all, and then after he killed us, and plus I was watching from the cliff after I died, by the way, he slowly picked our base apart piece by piece. Now, I know we built our base out of stone, so you gotta imagine it's a raptor destroying stone walls and foundations. It make no sense whatsoever. Maybe something I'll end up fixing when I make mods for the game. But anyways, we're gonna do ICBM-Classic today. I'm gonna go ahead and boot it up, and so we can take a look at what needs fixed. Now, I already know a list of stuff to work on. We're gonna be most likely working on the blast code today, which means it's going to be a slow, tedious process, probably take most of the week to fix. And we might diverge over this week a couple times into working into client projects because I never did take a chance this weekend to work on them. Number one thing we're probably going to do is audio, so I'll show you guys how to do more audio with the JSON system, and that'll pretty much be most of this week, is just working on more bug fixes and trying to get things done. And hopefully either today or later this week we'll be able to fix MFFS support for both of the ICBM mods, because right now that's not implemented, and it needs to be implemented through the EMP system. That way I do not have to manually code MFFS support into the blasts. What it'll do is any energy-based blast will set off the EMP system, which will then damage the field. Then we'll also apply the I blast resistance system to the force field, so that way when a blast hits a force field, the force field will either resorb, deflect, or whatever energy off of the wall. We'll toy with that system and we'll make it improved and various other things. This will allow the force fields to eventually collapse and degrade, and it will lead into the second version of MFFS eventually when we work on it. The new version, which will be planned to be developed maybe sometime next year, will be a highly multi-block driven structure system that will let you build, for those who've seen the Star Wars movies, those big shield generators off of Star Wars. That's kind of what I'm aiming for, is big structures like that will have ridiculous force field capability. It will mean that short of a large ICBM, you won't be able to break a force field. Right now, the current MFS version is only designed to block everything up to standard. Anything above standard probably will go through a force field without a problem. This is just how that's going to be designed for the moment. How you're going to do blocking of missiles is you're just going to have to build AA systems, laser grids. Actually, the best way I can think of to actually block ICBM stuff is to do sand cannons. This was something that was done back in 1.2.5 before pistons, I believe, were added. Actually, I don't remember when pistons were added, but there was an old piston mod you could play with, and you could shoot sand up in the air with it. And I remember that even after they put pistons into Minecraft, they made another version of it, but you could shoot sand in the air with it, and those are a great way to knock ICBMs out of the air. It's a little bit cheap when you think about it, but it does work. There are alternative ways to do it. I've actually seen a few mods that have interacted with missiles and actually damage them, because missiles have HP now, so they're actually damageable. So there's lots of different variety of ways to actually kill missiles. Bigger missiles are going to be really difficult to kill, but we'll get to that. I will make tutorials explaining how to take missiles out of the air, so I'm not going to cheap you guys out. And we are working on the wiki. By the way, we did restore the old wiki for ICBM. It has been up again. We should have done this the first time we realized we weren't going to get the wiki up, but due to the fact that we have no planning and communication with the team right now, it kind of got left off the list. We just forgot about it. It's fixed now. A lot of the other old wikis were restored at the same time. And the new wiki is being worked on. It is really slow, but it is being worked on. So expect to see that here in the next month or two. But anyways, let's get into the world here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to take a look at a few of the explosives, and we're going to figure out which ones absolutely need to be fixed and which ones can wait till later. All the chemical ones should work. I think I've already tested those recently. The ones that we're going to need to look at are going to be the higher tier ones, more than likely. Thermobolic, I think, is fine, but we're going to test that. We'll go ahead and build a reinforced bunker, and I'm obligated to test with Obsidian because that's the number one complaint when it comes to these blasts recently, is that Obsidian is not scaled properly, and either it always resists too much or it doesn't resist too low, and gotta toy with things and do blast resistance, and there's so much work these blasts need. They've never been balanced. For those who've played with the older versions, you may have not realized it, but the blasts were Never really balanced to fix things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a really quick 4x4 pad of each material, and we'll go ahead and we'll set off the blast right here, and then we'll just test how strong these materials are. If I need to increase their resistance values, decrease them, toy with them. Of course, these will all be configurable once I fix the configs. What I'm probably actually going to do is VoltSense is just going to contain a config override system for every block in the game. This includes modded blocks, vanilla blocks, and you guys can just do whatever you want. I'm not going to be too picky on this. Mod pack developers, it's up to you guys to actually balance this more than anything. I will get you guys as close as possible, but the balance is up to whoever makes the mod packs. And this material is probably not going to survive. And I will think about making a better test for this here later. I just got to get some generation code going. The more appropriate test would be to encase the blast in the material in a test and see how many layers it gets through. I don't remember how these are coded though. I know they use an iterative process, and when I mean iterative, it's 3 iterative loops that does your radius check and everything. It's actually a pretty cool piece of code, but it does not allow for any real blast protection. That's the reason we went with Pathfinder in the new version. Okay, so all these materials work. Next test would be to see if I can put an encased wall. And since we know this material works, I'm going to go ahead and use it as a blast point real quick. And let me go get... let's test some TNT real quick. I don't think it's ever been done recently. Do that. Okay, that works. I knew that was going to work regardless, but always a good idea to test your stuff. Yeah, that's good. And I'm pretty sure Obsidian's completely immune to TNT. So let's go ahead and get some little higher tech explosives here and go back to testing those. So put this here, and we're going to test to see... I actually forgot to put some material on the other side really quickly. Okay, so that didn't... This is the highest tech material, and that didn't even... So the thing is, we want this material here to take a direct hit from a thermobolic. And it just flat out just did not care. Or was it 3 layers maybe? Let's go ahead and do it this way. See how many we need. What is that? Noah. Okay, it's a help wanted thing. Okay. I've been getting followed by a lot of people recently, and the thing is, I don't think they're even people, I think they're bots. Okay, so that did answer my question. It is stripping away a single layer, so maybe if you just build a layered bunker, you'll be fine. So, balanced, I guess? Let's go ahead and do this again. I need to build some tools to actually build walls for me and stuff to make the test so much better. I know the antimatter will kill everything. I know the red matter will kill everything. The hypersonic I know is unbalanced right now. Let's see. Try the nuclear, see how many layers it goes through. Just as a thing, the nuclear and thermobolic are basically the same code, so the only difference is the nuke is more damage. But as we can see, it only stripped away 1 layer of the wall here. Because it's going to go out in every direction, by the way, and it's just going to strip away material it finds. So it did block these on these wall sections here and stopped going forward. And we can tell there's not a lot of blast damage in this area right here where the wall hit. That looked like it worked. There's a lot of blast damage over here, some over there, tons over here, but nothing directly behind this wall section here. That's one of the other flaws with the code is that you can effectively just put pillars of concrete up and it would provide an adequate amount of protection, not a superior amount, but an adequate amount, enough that you could block a blast. That actually does work in real life too, by the way. So this is not like I'm not keeping with realism, but you could build a wall like this, and what you could do is you could just like sawtooth it to provide a decent amount of protection, and you could probably end up with something that would protect you from a couple hits. Wouldn't protect you from repeat hits though. But the thermobarics look like they're okay on the balance. So it is the hypersonic, the one that we do need to work on. So we're going to go ahead and get this, and I apologize for the audio. This is probably going to happen from this thing. If I recall right, the audio on this is really horrible. It should be turned down though, so it shouldn't be too bad. Okay, there's some coloration problems with it, but it just ripped through everything, so it is a bit of a balance problem. I mean, this is meant to be like a high-tier explosive, but by the way, for those who are asking, my audio is at 1%. That's still pretty loud. I think it's at 1% at least. 3%. Yeah, I'm not going to up this. I want to up this to make a point to just note how annoying the audio files are in the older versions of this code. But you guys can figure that out on your own. I ain't fix that. Let's see. So let's take a look at the hypersonic code and see what we can do to mitigate the problem right now before I can actually rewrite everything. So the explosives are set up through a system here where you've got an EX. This is very similar to how the new one works. It's basically the same style. The only difference is these are not identical to the new system. They're still using the old version, which we don't use anymore. For those who say I copied from the old version to the new one, I actually rewrote the new one. It was rewritten from scratch. So let's see. I'm going to have a hell of a time finding the hypersonic, but we'll just go to the explosives list and find it this way. It is a sonic blast, so it uses the same code as the sonic. Let's check the sonic real quick to see if it has the same problem. Sonic is a lower tier. Right, there it is. So these both use the same exact code. That makes me nauseous just to listen to that. Now, I don't really understand what the original design of these two were supposed to be. I'm assuming they use sound to just throw things around, but I have no design notes from when Calculavi made this. But anyways, let's go ahead and open up the EX Sonic. So the explosive code itself is really basic on the handler. So this is what handles the code, and then the blasts themselves are what actually does everything. So this one has a shockwave on it. Has shockwave. What does shockwave even do? It has shockwave. I'm not sure what shockwave even does. We have our iterative approach though, so this is what I was talking about, the iterative system. It just kind of balls out at a distance is how it's supposed to work. This one looks like it just does a rectangle and just deletes everything though, so really basic code. No checks at all for protection. And then here's our thread for our large explosive. So how the explosives work is they do slices outward, and then they eventually create a ball shape that deletes blocks. I don't fully understand the code. I probably could break it down. I went through here a few times. That's the reason why these are actually named what they are. Is I actually came down through here and I reverse engineered it at some point. I don't really like the look of this code here. There's a thumb of rule when it comes to Java and other languages very similar to Java. You do not use floating points for iterator loops due to precision. This will work though because we are decreasing the radius or decreasing the power as we go out. But I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. So this goes out in slices. It does steps. It does use explosive resistance. However, It doesn't give craps about fluids. Resistance is based on power. And then we have D, whatever D is. D times equal this minus power. Power is set to energy minus energy times position something. So energy is some kind of default power value. That's set in the thread explosion. I mean, you gotta admit the old code actually did run pretty good for what it was, but it's not designed with bunkers in mind. It does work though. Not that the newer code really helps with bunkers either, but the newer code I'm working on. The reason I say the newer code, by the way, doesn't work on bunkers, I can show really quickly with paint here, is with the old code, it's basically you have a blast like this, and if you get a bunker, and say it was right here, then anything on these lines past here is basically protected. And that sort of is how a real one works. So you'll get this protection zone like this. But at the same time, that's kind of not how it works, because what you would also have happen is if it was a real explosion, is you would have a fire effect that would come around here. It wouldn't wrap this corner much. It might come down a little bit off this corner like that. So you would have a blast protection radius behind this wall, but you wouldn't have this where it hits this spot and then it's like, I ain't going any further. And the reason why it hits that spot is you have the radius check is going out like this, and then hits a wall and it goes, okay, I can't go any further, and it just doesn't go any further. At least that's in theory how this is working. Because it goes if, well, it's got a resistance break check. So we're going out in a radius here. And then we're adding delta. So we're getting something here. Okay, this is, yeah, it does go out. So what this does, this goes out. Hold on, if I can pull paint open. So how this does code does work. So we have a detonation like this, and it's going out every direction. So it's trying to go the full length here, is what it looks like. Yeah, this makes perfect sense. Surprisingly, this is actually a really cool code because this would run really well. And I may actually toy with it to fix my energy-based blasts here later. But it goes out like this in every direction. The only reason this doesn't really work well is because we want some kind of wrapping on the edges here. So what we would end up having to do is figure out some corner logic and do a few other things. And oh, honestly, this code is actually not horrible, and I'm thinking about it more. But anyways, the new one, since I didn't show that, how the new one works. So we got a bunker once again. So the new code doesn't do this whole ray trace thing. The new code is you have a blast that goes off here, and the blast slowly goes out like that. And then when it hits a wall, it'll continue, it just won't touch anything inside of the wall. So it'll go, no damage in the wall, but it'll wrap the corners. So if it keeps going out, it'll hit everything behind the wall back here, because what it does is it uses something called a breadth first pathfinder. And how the breadth first works is I start with a box, and then on my second iteration, I then extend off that box again. And then of course I will find 6 more boxes. Okay, we're in a 2D thing, so we're only going to get 4. So we would have 4 boxes. Then on the next iteration, we would make more boxes. And it keeps going out. By the way, these boxes would be blocks. So how it works is it's slowly mapping out all the connections. And it just keeps going out. And this gives us a radius type of blast. It does 1 block at a time, by the way, because that's just how computers work. You can't just do 50 blocks in one go. You have to do 1 action at a time. Even if you could do 50 actions in under a second, it's still 1 action at a time. But with a breadth first, you go out on the radius. There is an alternative to this that some developers do use, which is called a depth first. It is just as valid to use, but how the depth first would work is you would go out like this, and you would keep going out every time you went out. And you wouldn't come back to this point until you ran out of other points. So say, for example, the blue cube was our last cube. Then what would happen is on our next iteration, we would then extend off this cube. and then say the yellow cube was our last cube, then we would come back to the red cube. Maybe we would iterate off the red cube. And say we had more pass, we would come back. That's how a depth first works. There are advantages to each. The reason why I don't use a depth first is because I try to update the world at the same time as I do the blast. So with the breadth first, I'm already going in this radius pattern. So if I'm updating the world in real time, I actually get that radius blast type of system, which actually works really, really well. You see the craters go out slowly. With the way the old code for Calclavius work, you had the same problem. It's basically a depth first search without using pathfinding. There is no pathfinding in this. How this is working is that we're going out each iteration until we hit something we can't break. If we can't break it, then we're supposed to stop theoretically. This actually isn't stopping. That could explain a lot. Let's do some more testing with the hypersonic here. I'm gonna grab reinforced bunker here, because before we try to do anything, I need to understand this code as best as possible. That way, if for some magical luck the code Calclavia made actually is better than what I'm working on, I need to figure out how to take the current ICBM explosive code and then try to improve it using the knowledge I gained from this. Because after all, one thing Calclavia had me beat up on when it came to coding is he understood math a lot better than I did, which is saying a lot because my degree is in applied physics, which I feel bad for sometimes. But he did better at math than I did, so I do admit this. You know what I want to do real quick? I want to set the thermobolic off again, and then we'll do another test here. Okay, put you there, put you here. Oh, no, go in, and. Okay. So yeah, we're seeing that pathing logic. Okay. Now, if the pathing logic does work the way I think it does, then let's go ahead and reinforce this, because apparently I need 2 layers. So 2 layers to survive a thermobolic unless I rebalance it. Just remember that, guys, who want to survive a nuke or something. 2 layers of concrete. I have a feeling that the corner here does some stuff here. So we'll make sure we get the corners up. And then, yeah, we're just going to toy with some code here. So we'll put that there, and we'll put, well, if I can put the torch in the right spot. So we're going to test to see if the layer system works appropriately. Okay, so we got some damage here. No damage there. We had a lot of blowout damage in that direction. So it looks like it went right through that corner and it kept going. There are better ways to test this. I'm going to probably toy with some JUnit tests for this later, because I need some solid numbers off of this. The new ICBM has those numbers, by the way. That's the reason why I know how the code works precisely. You know what? That's not gonna work. I need redstone block. That'll do the trick. Now what we should see is the corner should get a lot of damage. Yeah, so we got an X-shaped pattern. So the code is working exactly how I think it is. It's going out in that that iterative direction. You know, the only problem with this code though is it's based on the number of degrees of accuracy, and it looks like we're doing 2 degrees per rotation. So that means there's 180 points on it, which means as you get out further and further, the blast is going to get weaker and weaker on block damage. That's the reason why we see these 2 like little wedge tips at each one of these. It's because you're seeing the line go out like that, and it's going to go out like that. It's actually, this is kind of cool code. I'm going to have to remember this stuff. The reason I'm saying this is because I'm working on a game right now, and this kind of code is what you would run inside of a game that did not have a voxel map. So we're playing in Minecraft. Minecraft has a voxel map. And by the way, just as a tip, The Minecraft explosive does really similar code to this. Not exactly the same, I don't think, but we can probably go check in a second. So if I blow this up, we should see a similar pattern out of it. Kind of. Not perfect. If we actually if we do this real quick. I don't know, I think Minecraft code actually might be better in some qualities. I know it's slower though, because I think Minecraft uses a legitimate ray trace to do theirs. And then we're not using ray traces for this, we're using some kind of alternative code that works very similar to a ray trace. We did get our somewhat similar pattern there. It's kind of cool actually. That made a really nice shape. I may have just figured out a new building strategy for doing floors. Crafting with explosives. Anyways, we're done with that part. So we kind of need to figure out how we're going to modify this without really breaking the explosives. So our Sonic Blasts, let's go find our EX here. So we got Blast Sonic of 15 radius, and then whatever Lang is. Nanglanger. I can't pronounce words. What are you used as? Energy is what that is. As I said, things are in Chinese. Nothing's commented either. It's also like weird brackets here. So has Shockwave looks like it's designed to flat out break blocks is what it looks like. So let's so get radius times 2 is the Shockwave. So let's take a look at the Hypersonic one more time, just so I can get a last second opinion on whether or not I need to remove that piece of code. It's really hard to tell what's up, but explosive resistance is greater than energy. You know what? This may be what Lemming was, or Lim ADC saw when it came to the hypersonic instantly killing things. I mean, it doesn't look like it's doing it though. We were getting falling blocks, although they're not doing their jobs right. We're getting like whatever these are. I need to reprogram the falling blocks that goes if stuck in material despawn. Or drop item actually is what it should do. Okay. So what I think the hypersonic is doing is if it runs into a material higher than its energy so its energy is 35. And I don't know what the explosive resistance of obsidian is. But actually, let's not test over here because I don't want to blow my workspace up. Over here is where we were testing the radar a couple episodes back. And I was playing with a creeper in a minecart too, if anybody's seen that video. I had a little too much entertainment from that. So what this looks like is if faced with an indestructible object that is not bedrock, or what it perceives as indestructible, it just removes it, which is highly exploitatory. Yeah, it just flat out deleted it. Okay, so we know how to fix the issue Lim was seeing. That's twice the radius. Or is it? How is this code set up? So what I'm just going to do, because I don't feel like dealing with this, to be honest, is we're just going to get rid of this piece of code. So we know this piece of code is just not balanced at all. So we'll get rid of that. What? How's that a schema change? Restart debug screen. Whatever. That'll work. Benjamin Wolf. I made a comment here because some retarded person in the UK wants to pass a law. So they want to pass this law where they want to essentially do what the FBI was trying to do over here in the US. They want to create backdoors and everything. But not only do they want to create backdoors, they want to basically block anything that could give you encryption on your software. And they want to basically throw anybody out of the country that makes encryption software, which is not going to happen when you think about it, because there's so many places in the UK that make really nice encryption software, but that they would be getting rid of. But they want to do something. But I commented on here is like, I'm not even mad. The amount of stupidity is actually impressive. I've been waiting to use this meme for I don't know how long. So I got a chance to use it. I need to delete that. I think I'll make a video here later explaining the difference between breadth first and depth first searches, because it is pretty useful as a mod developer to know, because those two algorithms can help a massive amount on doing various things inside this game. They can help with AI code, Thaumcraft, the thing that can detect for candles nearby. I forgot the word candle. I'm impressed I did that. But the thing that can detect for candles and crystals nearby, that would be something that would be really useful to do a breadth first search on. To some extent, to be honest, just doing a radius-based search does the same job, but there's some beauty about breadth first searches that you end up with the same result, but sometimes a little faster and a little cleaner. It's also really good for things like if you want to dump fluids into the world. Those type of searches are really great because you can search from your radial point on your pump outward until you find a block that you can put fluid in. And this makes a nice, cleaner implementation on dumping fluids in the system. This is the reason my pump was so much nicer than the mechanism for the longest time, because he was using a depth first search and I used a breadth first search. Although I switched to a depth first search later because I didn't understand the difference between the two when I made the pump. So I got to breadth first search accidentally, and then I ended up with a depth first search eventually. Although the interesting thing with a depth first search is you can trick it into believing it's a breadth first search by doing a sorting pattern on your final result. So that way you end up always using the closest block anyways. But there's a lot of titty bit pieces that need to be fixed, I guess, with that kind of stuff. I need to actually work on pumps again. One of my favorite things actually in this game is working with fluids. I love hydraulics, I love pneumatics. I'm amazed I still don't have a mod right now for that. I've watched other people build mods for it, and I'm like slightly envious that they get to do that kind of stuff, and I'm still sitting back here making missiles. Although, not that I don't like making missiles, I still love to do this kind of stuff, but damn, I want to get back to working on pneumatics and hydraulics. I actually studied both of them in college when I was studying engineering. They are some of the funnest things you can ever play with. Nothing compares to essentially creating a system that uses pressure to do work. It's pretty cool when you think about it, because your arms don't do that. Your arms don't use pressure to work. They use elasticity or to pull tendons and muscles together. Okay, that's why that does what it does. Now if we set it off on the top of it, I think these are the same problems I found several years ago when I was debugging this mod for Calclavia, is that there just was so much issues with the explosives, and we almost always got into conflict over it, where I was going, hey, we got to do this, we got to work on this, we got to work on this, we got to work on this. Because back in the UE team, I was one of the few people that actually cared about user experience before I even know what user experience was. That's whenever time you see UX on a developer thing, that's what that means. It's user experience. So I was one of the few people that cared about that, and I always was frustrated with these explosives because they didn't really give this great impression of user experience. They kind of, I mean, they work, but at the same time they don't. This is good enough of a result right now. I'm gonna have to work on it. It does look like we did fix the issue that at least Libya ADC was running into, but there is a lot more work to really be done on this. What we ended up doing, by the way, though, with making this function this way, is we did actually sort of more than less nerf the hypersonic. But we at least fixed the problem where it was instantly breaking concrete and stuff. We'll come back and work on this later. What other explosives do we have to toy with? So those are some of the basic ones that were complained about. I know endothermic and exothermic were some complaints as well, because they're just not quite balanced either. And to be honest, there's not a lot I can really do about balance in this mod. Because if I fix balance, what I inevitably end up doing is changing the gameplay. So that thing that people really liked about this stuff, if I fix balance, I actually inevitably also destroy the very quality that makes this enjoyable. Let's check anti-grab out. Oh yeah, here's an explosive that definitely needs work. So much work is needed on that one. Now this is one that would have benefit from a breadth first search that then did an algorithm to grab topmost block, because that's what you want to do, is you want to suck the topmost block off the ground before you do anything else. So here's one that we can definitely work on the next episode here, because I'm going to cut this one here in a second. But let's take a look at. Okay, so we did endothermic. Let's go find the exothermic real quick. And then that's it right now, because to be honest, the other ones are pretty good. That's got a nice animation on it. A little laggy. Way too much lava. You know what? Let's does it have this much lava in the old version? No, we'll have to definitely look into this one later, because I feel like that's too much lava. But I don't remember particularly using that one, because when I played on PvP servers, I barely ever used the high tier ones. My preferred way to mess with somebody on a PvP server, I would just spam the crap out of you with low tier missiles. They were so easy to craft. I could get them in quantity. I built automated factories to hit with. Let's check Repulsion out real quick. An actual block? Yeah, it's actual block. I think this one just works on entities though. Yeah, that's just an entity blast thing. Oh no, it did damage to the ground. Okay. Of course, we got our classic S mine, which is probably the most destructive one actually for the lower tier stuff. There is a possibility I may nerf this one, because, well, nah, I'll leave it how it is. It's not that bad. And just end this video off for those who really like this one. The good old classic red matter pump. And we're going to cut this video to an end, and I'll be back here a bit later potentially, possibly, if I'm not back, then tomorrow will be a new video.